So how does this even happen? I mean, how do you go from being the world's youngest self-made female billionaire to having a net worth of literally zero, all in just 1 year? It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But believe it or not, this is the true story of Elizabeth Holmes.
Today, we're diving deep into the whole Theranos scandal. We're going to unpack how one of Silicon Valley's absolute brightest stars, people were calling her the next Steve Jobs, ended up pulling off a massive fraud that led to one of the most spectacular falls from grace we've ever seen.
Okay, so to really understand how it all came crashing down, we first have to look at the powerful myth she built around herself. See, she wasn't just another CEO. No, she was meticulously crafting an image, an icon, positioning herself as, you guessed it, the next Steve Jobs.
So picture this. She's just 19 years old, drops out of Stanford because she's got this idea she thinks is going to change the world. And she even adopts the look, that signature black turtleneck, a very deliberate nod to Steve Jobs. With this image, she totally captivated Silicon Valley with a promise that sounded almost too good to be true, to completely revolutionize healthcare, all with just a single drop of blood.
And the vehicle for this incredible promise? It was her company, Theranos. The name itself is actually a mashup of therapy and diagnosis, which, you have to admit, sounds pretty revolutionary. It was founded way back in 2003, and its big, lofty mission was to democratize healthcare, basically to put the power of information right into the hands of patients.
But here's the thing. There were red flags from the very beginning. When Holmes first pitched her idea to her own professor at Stanford, a medicine professor named Phyllis Gardner, the response was incredibly blunt. Just, I don't think your idea is going to work. But, that kind of expert skepticism, it was pretty much brushed aside. Silicon Valley was just so hungry for the next big thing.
So yeah, despite those pretty clear early warnings, the vision was too compelling for people to resist. Holmes didn't just ignore the doubters. She completely steamrolled them with her charisma, building this multi-billion-dollar empire on, well, not much more than a promise.
And get this, by 2015, Theranos hit a peak valuation of $9 billion. That number, at least on paper, made Holmes the youngest self-made female billionaire in the U.S. The hype was absolutely off the charts, and you better believe the money was just pouring in.
So you're probably wondering, why did so many smart people buy into this? Well, for one, just look at the board she assembled. It's been called the most illustrious board in U.S. corporate history. We're talking titans of politics and defense. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz. This wasn't just some startup board, it was a massive, powerful statement of legitimacy. But here's the thing about a $9 billion facade. Eventually, the cracks start to show, and they did, starting with a total bombshell of an investigation that was about to knock over that first crucial domino.
The beginning of the end really kicked off in October 2015. A reporter for the Wall Street Journal, John Carreyrou, had been secretly investigating for months, thanks to tips from some brave whistleblowers inside Theranos, and he was about to pull back the curtain and expose the truth for everyone to see.
And wow, when that article finally dropped, things unraveled fast. The journal laid it all out. The technology was wildly inaccurate, and get this, Theranos was secretly just using regular, old machines from other companies. Almost immediately, federal regulators found huge problems. Walgreens pulled the plug on their partnership, and Holmes herself got banned from the entire blood testing industry for 2 years. So faced with all this damning evidence, did Holmes back down? Not a chance. She went on the offensive. She goes on national TV and drops that classic visionary line, first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world. She was just doubling down on the whole myth. But, a myth can only stand up against cold, hard facts for so long. The reckoning was coming. And this would be the final act in her story, the journey from celebrated CEO to convicted felon. And the legal fallout was pretty methodical. First, in March 2018, the SEC hits her with charges of massive fraud. Then, just a few months after that, a federal grand jury indicts her on actual criminal charges. The trial finally got underway in August 2021, and we got a verdict in January of 2022. Now, the verdict itself was a little complicated. The jury found her guilty on 4 counts of defrauding her investors, the people who had poured millions and millions of dollars into her company based on lies. But, and this is a crucial point, they found her not guilty of directly defrauding patients. Basically, they decided the prosecution just couldn't prove that she knew she was giving patients bogus results. So what was the price for that guilty verdict? Well, in November 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was sentenced to 11 and a quarter years in federal prison. Just a stunning and very final end to her crazy rise and fall.
So, Holmes is in prison, but her story, her legacy, it's still out there, and it leaves us with some big questions. What can we actually learn from all this fallout? Well, it's turned into a huge cautionary tale, not just for Silicon Valley, but for everyone.
Which really makes you ask a crucial question. What was the real cost of the Theranos fraud? Because it goes way beyond just the hundreds of millions of dollars that investors lost.
Yeah, according to the New York Times, the scandal created this very real stigma for other female entrepreneurs, especially those working in science and healthcare. For years afterwards, you had female founders saying that these constant comparisons to Holmes were pernicious, that they were making it way harder for legitimate, brilliant innovators to get funding and just be taken seriously.
Ultimately, the story of Theranos is this giant, flashing warning sign against Silicon Valley's whole fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. It shows you the disaster that can happen when that mindset gets applied to something as serious as people's health. And it really forces us to ask some tough questions. Where is the line between having a bold, visionary ambition and just committing outright fraud? And as we keep hunting for that next billion-dollar unicorn, how do we make sure we don't fall for the next big lie?